Don't forget to say for 1 week. So we need to drag to go back here. No. No. Hey, I'm not. Yeah,
Okay, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Can we please mute ourselves? It's now time to start this long-awaited interview about the killing still going on in Plateau State. Can we please mute ourselves to allow these? Let me see. All right. Once again, I hope you can hear me. Good evening. We are happy to welcome our guests tonight. We have Mr. Luca Pampe. You are welcome to this interview.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Right. We also have Mr. Miles Jack. We are happy to welcome you to this interview.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks to be here.
Great. So once again, we are about to examine what is actually happening in Plateau State. And the last time we've spoken about this now for some time, but it appears that news reports still give us everyday running commentaries about killings. Even this morning, we have yet another report of killings that happened in Plateau State overnight. So, Mr. Pampe, this report we are getting, is it correct? Is it the way the media are reporting it, or are we being misled?
It's true that there have been killings, despite some efforts to be able to stem it in the bots. We've been receiving reports of killings in various communities across the Mangu, Riom, and part of Barkin Ladi. So most of these reports are true.
Can you give us the last interview we had on Plateau State was 2 weeks ago. So in the past 2 weeks, do you have an idea, possibly figures, how many killings have been reported and the casualties?
Well, exactly we cannot ascertain because most of these killings are done and they are not properly reported. But there are sources in which some of these reports are being taken for public statistics purposes, as it were, particularly the reports from the Nigerian police that usually issue out statements about killings in villages. And there are places where mostly when people are attacked and killed, communities bury their own quietly. And we've seen attacks in different places. If you take Mangu, for example, in the last 2 weeks, apart from the attack in around the Mararabam Pushit axis, which is also a district in Mangu, where we had an attack in a community called Washna, and then that also moved to a place called Gogotkung, as it were, before the military also moved in. And in those particular communities, there have been reports of killings. I cannot tell you precisely the number of persons that have been killed. And then around the Jol community in Riom too, we've received reports of attacks. Last week too, there was another one at a village around Ampang, Mangun. And these are also districts under Mangu local government. In Mangun, particularly 2 persons were reported to have been killed. And then I remember too, last week, this almost about fortnight, 3 persons were also killed in another community in Riom. And then there was also the killing at Farin Lamba. Farin Lamba is also, a community along the, what we call Jos Abuja Road in Riom local government, where there was sporadic shooting, where a man and his wife and a kid of about 14 months or thereabout were reported killed along that particular axis. So, of course, there have been killings, but to be able to tell you the precise figures, like I said, This is a bit difficult because some of these communities bury their lost ones, quietly. And then most of the times it is when it's reported to the Nigerian police or when the military issue out statements about figures that the public get to rely, particularly the media, rely on those particular figures. But what is unfortunate is the fact that there have been shedding of bloods in most of these communities, despite the fact that we've also seen the relocation of the operation headquarters of what is referred to as Operation Safe Haven, which is a military initiative on the Plateau, as it were, relocating the headquarters, the command headquarters to Mangu. That has also been able to stem a little bit, the killings in these communities.
Thank you very much. Mr. Teye, do you agree with what Mr. Pampe has said, or do you have any addition or subtraction to make? You muted yourself. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening. Just like Mr. Pampe have said, I think I concur with what he has said. Basically, in cases of attacks like this, you may not really ascertain exact figures. And like you mentioned, the issue of mass burials and all that. Most of these attacks are carried out in the night where people are sleeping, and you have cases of houses razed, and then we have bodies, mutilated ones that you can't even keep account of the number of the casualties. So yeah, I agree with what he has said. Totally. Yeah.
Okay. Whenever we come to this interview, we do a little experiment. So let's do it now.
Hello.
Yeah, I think you are back now. You are a little bit intermittently disconnected, but you are back. So let's do what we did the last time. Let us check on our website. Let me just share. Okay, no, that is YouTube. All right, here it is. So if we go to our website now and we search for, let's search for Plateau State and see what reports we will get from Plateau State. Okay, here they are, which shows that today, being July 19, 2 feared dead as Fulani militias attack Plateau State. And July 16, Mietiala asks FG to look into activities of Plateau security outfit, still referencing the critical security situation. On July 13, bandits killed by troops in Plateau identified as dismissed police officer. And July 11, we are checking the last 2 weeks when we had the last interview. Yeah. Plateau government relocates NYAC camps over insecurity. On July 10, Plateau killings, 15 bodies recovered, 78 houses razed. So let us, okay, that's 2 weeks. All right, still July 10, Mawagavul youth president escapes harassment attack with life-threatening injury. I think this is the gentleman that we interviewed on this forum, isn't it?
That's right.
Yes, we interviewed him, and in the next few days, we had reports that he was attacked and barely escaped with his life. So, which shows that, so are these reports the way we are reporting it, or again, are we exaggerating things here? Once again, Mr. Teye, please.
Okay. There is no exaggeration. Rather, I would say, like I said, you may not, or reporters or security that always report figures that sometimes are not correct. Like I said, we have mutilated bodies. Like these attacks are carried out mostly in the night, and then there are cases of burns, and there are cases of machetes, like people you can't even keep count of bodies. So yeah, the reports are right, and sometimes there are They are not exaggerated at all, like exaggerated, I mean.
Okay, so Mr. Pampe, thank you very
Yeah.
much, Mr. Pampe. So, does it mean that still this new government in Plateau State, or even at the center, the FG, appears helpless, or they are conniving? Is there a collusion between security agencies or even the government at the state and FG level at what is happening in Plateau State?
Well, I think I would like to take it a little bit back with what you gave, and my brother there also responded to. Let me say a little bit before I can respond to your question, because we also need to put these things into perspectives, like he has said, in the right context, so that people are not also misled out there. For those of us that are on ground, myself and my brother there, some of us have been to these scenes. We've been to these villages where attacks have been carried out. But let me pick some of those palpary of reports, as I put it. It is true that because of the attack that took place last week around a village called Merana, which is close to the National Youth Service Corps camp, that's the orientation camp in Mangu local government. The NYC secretariat is relocated at a place called Jakatai. And because of the sporadic attacks along that axis, spiraling from a place called Lugere, which is Ruga. Ruga is a rural grazing area, right up to places like Metumbi, within that general area. And because of that fear, the government have relocated the National Youth Service Corps orientation camp to Jos South, in around the general area of Jos here, which is the capital of Plateau State, because of safety and the image, given the fact that those at the camp are usually people that are drawn from different parts of Nigeria. So to that extent, that report is true. Now, you will also notice in that particular report that there have been figures that have been brandished by both parts, and I'm using the word brandish advisedly. There have been accusations and counter-accusations, particularly between the Mogavul Nation and also the Fulani body, which is also known as Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association. And on the side of the Mogavul, that is a predominant tribe in Mangu local government, under the auspices of the Mogavul Development Association. We've seen what we call the use of the public space, particularly the media, through press release, to be able to ventilate grievances on both sides. So there have been accusations and counter-accusations. You will notice from what you have placed on the screen earlier that the Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, Plateau State chapter, said that there have been bodies that have been recovered about 70-something hours after. Well, that is a side. On the side of the Mogavul Development Association, last week we had a press release, which is in form of a press conference at the NUJ Press Center. And more than 200 figures have also been given by the Mogavul Development Association. So to that extent too, the reports by the media with regards to those ones are what were obtained, in the last fortnight or 2 weeks or thereabout. So to that extent, you would press center. Yes. So you can understand, the accusations and counter accusations, as it were. But coming up to address the question that you have raised with regards to whether there are collusions, you will recall, if you have also been following the Plateau killings, that the Plateau killings has been on, for quite some time. And to be able to place time to it, since the crisis of September 7, 2001, the dimensions of these killings have moved away mostly from the city centers. That is the metropolis, where you usually have crisis or conflicts between various religions, even when they are used under the guise of religion. Now it's a different dimension entirely. It is about the bandits. It is about attacks on communities. It has been able to move from mostly the city centers to the rural areas. And this is mostly between, farmers and cattle breeders. When I say between, I'm not giving a sense of a war between the two, but in most cases, it is about attacks. You You find cattle grazing on land, on farms, and of course, attacks on communities and all that. So the question of whether there has been collusion, has remained a subject of debate over a period of time. And unfortunately, too, it has remained so in the true sense of the word. So yes, accusations have been made by various groups like the BYM. BYM is Birom Youth Molders. And this is an umbrella body of the Birom ethnic community that occupy local governments in majority like Riom and Barkin Ladi in the true sense of the word. They have accused the military of colliding, with outsiders to be able to attack their communities. We've seen, that accusation as it were. And then on the side of the Mogavul too, we have also seen where even the governor himself was quoted on a national television as saying that some of these people that attack these communities mostly come from other neighboring countries like Mali, countries like Cote d'Ivoire, countries like Cameroon, as it were. And I'm sure that those might be security reports that might have indicated those particular reports in the true sense of the word. So yes, we cannot rule out the issue of collusion, as it is, given the fact that there have been accusations about government enterprises, government security forces. These are not neighborhood watch, or these are not private guards. These are security forces, that are being paid by our tax payers' money in the true sense of the word. So to that extent, you may not be able to rule out the issue of collusion, or for a want of better word, for let me say sympathy on the sides of perhaps where certain government officials, either at the federal level or state level, have taken convenience in supporting to allow such unfortunate incidents to continue to happen. So I think that is my candid opinion in the true sense of it.
So far, Mr. Teye, what are the prospects of these killings? Have we seen anything from the body language of the Plateau State governor now to give us hope that a solution is in sight?
Yes, we must also be able to understand the security architecture as it is presently constituted in this part of the world. If you look at how the architecture is designed and structured, certainly that the control of those who are expected to ensure stability and protection of lives and property is strictly in the hands of the president, as it provided by the Constitution in the true sense of the word. Nigeria does not have a state police or a policing system where power is given either to state executives or to the federating units to be able to control, such security forces, as it were. So I must be able to put that into perspective. So squarely, it is the duty of the federal government through the office of the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces to ensure that there are strategic operations in those particular areas. And that is why I mentioned initially that there have been operations going on, let me to put it facts before all of us here. In 30 states out of 36 states of the Federation, 30 states, the troops have been, operating in those areas. For Plateau State, it's Operation Safe Haven, which is also expected to ensure that there is stability in the true sense of the word. So instructions to commissioners of police, instructions to even commandants that are in charge of these places come from the federal government. So it's good that we put that into perspective. At the second layer to this structure or strata, as it were, is the fact that the governor has some control, over security, state security outfits, as it were. And that is to the extent that we can understand that previous administration, in an effort to be able to address this unfortunate situation, have been able to come up with state security outfits. So Plateau, we have the Operation Rainbow, as it were. And the Operation Rainbow, of course, for want of time, we will not be able to look at the detailed objectives and functions of that particular security outfit. But of course, the governor can utilize that for the purpose of curbing this unfortunate situation in the community. So to that extent, too, we've been able to see in the last 50 days or more that the governor have been able to redeploy, the Operation Rainbow in some of these strategic communities to be able to protect, communities as it were. But of course, this will also add flesh to the fact that one of the reports you have seen by Mieti Allah Cattle Breeders Association through a press conference is that they have also accused the government of using that particular outfit to attack, their communities as it were. So to that extent, you can understand that in a way, the governor has been able to reactivate. I contested with the governor for the position of governor of Plateau State. And I can tell you for free that in almost all engagements, he had promised to reactivate that particular agency. All of us, of course, did promise to work with that agency. Like it is also obtainable in the southwestern part of Nigeria through the Amotekun to be able to fight this. So to that extent, we've seen the governor within the whims of his powers, exercising that. Then we also have the neighborhoods. We also have neighborhood watch. Then we also have other vigilante groups. But of course, these vigilante groups, as it were, if you had been able to study what is also happening in Nigeria, you see that Plateau State is one of such states where that particular vigilante group has not been registered officially to be given more power, to at least protect those communities. So to that extent, I think the government have been able to make some efforts. And we've also seen the governor, going into engagements. Recently, I think last week and part of this week, he was able to meet with the chief of army staff. He was also able to meet with some of the security chiefs, particularly the Air Force, as it were, so that the other agencies of the security that are on the plateau can be reactivated and be given that force, that teeth to be able to bite, in the true sense of the word. The Air Force have what we call a rapid response base that is situated somewhere around Kerang, which is in Mangu local government, as it is. So I think this has been the effort of the government so far in trying to address. I'm not the spokesperson to the government, but I'm speaking strictly from the dimension of the fact that we have also seen some efforts by the administration. But the question is, are these efforts enough? And I can tell you with all sense of responsibility that it is not enough, given the fact that we have also seen killings going on. Thank you.
Okay, finally, before we take questions from some of our listeners and maybe comments, Mr. Teye, I don't know whether I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but from the body language of the governor of the federal government, are you seeing any room for optimism here that things will improve in Plateau State?
Yeah, I see the governor to be doing a lot with the federal government, but I think a lot more needs to be done, because you see most of this, like I'd like to draw us back a little bit, back to where you asked if there's any collusion between the army and all that. So you see, some of us that have been on ground have visited areas where all these attacks have been orchestrated without any attempt by the security men. Like there's a place in Riom local government where you have the base of the sector commander staying, and then attacks, killings will happen just a few meters away from the camp where the sector commanders stay. And then they will tell you no one knows where all these people follow, or nobody has the knowledge of where they take, the routes they take. They come, kill people swiftly, and they go without anything. And just at the point where youths of the community will come to try to follow up to see how they can also face these people. And then the army would now sweep on them and then pack all of them and lock them and say, oh, these are our exhibits. These are people that have been going around in the night to terrorize communities. I wonder how a community youth will still terrorize his own community in a situation like this. Back in Ladi, for example, Kasa, there was a checkpoint there, and then killings were orchestrated just a few meters away from the checkpoint. I think it was women of the community that came, and despite the army, they said, look, we don't need you here since these things are happening here, and then you people cannot do anything. So we believe that there is a conspiracy between you and the Fulanis who are coming to do all these things, because at one of the occasions, they were traces. So the issue of conspiracy, I am supporting, or I'm also of the opinion, or supporting the opinion that, yeah, I sense some senses of conspiracy between the security outfit and all that. There are bodies that were trained. There are trained bodies that we know, like the Peace Corps of Nigeria. We know these are organizations that have passed through the National Assembly, and their bills are even in the presidency. You know, there are trainings and their modes of training in the army, and all these days, what they call TRADOC, training doctrines and command. You see a Fulani, how can a Fulani from the community that have been saying that we have to ask questions on where do I follow, how do I pass through to this place, how do I go to this area, come and orchestrate or do all the killings, raise houses, and then they go without any attempt, no, without anybody, and we have security all around. So I see that the governor needs to do a lot. The governor needs to do more of interfacing with the federal government, just so that they will respond and then enforce more. That point, that rapid response point at Kerang for the Air Force, I think they are underutilizing that unit there. Because if that unit is to be enforced and be given the right mandates of operation or modus of operandi of that unit, I think all the pockets of killings that happen around the Panyam, the Pushit, the Joak and Mirana, Jakate areas will not take place. These are areas that they are very clear that Air Force with their surveillance jets can go around and see where all these people are coming from. So, but you see that place is just quite idle, you know, you only pass and see it there, but they have not put that place in full operation, if you ask me. The governor needs to do a lot more. That's my submission.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any comments or questions from our other guests and listeners tonight? Anyone with any, you can raise up your digital hand and then we will recognize you before we get concluding comments from our special guests tonight. Okay, my final question to you now will be, without going into deep strategy, are there things that the communities are doing to help themselves? Let's start with finally Mr. Mpapa and then use it to give us your concluding comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, the communities already are doing a lot because if it is not because communities are also trying their best, I'm sure that a lot of them would have also been consumed at the moment. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility because if you look at the magnitude of destruction in some of these communities, where when they are either killed or chased away, their lands are also grabbed or taken away. Then, of course, if it is not because communities are also resilient to ensure that they also fight back to return to those particular places, I can tell you that those communities would have also been long forgotten. I'll give you an example with the Rob community. Rob is in Barkin Ladi. Last year or thereabout, there were some rebuilding efforts by the government through the National Emergency Management Agency, spirited individuals, and also the members of the communities, and we also with the help of the security agencies to be able to return to those communities. As I'm speaking to you, there are places in Washna towards areas like Gogotkung, which is also an axis from Gindiri, Chanso to Janaret in Mangu local government, that as I'm talking to you, there are places where people are just beginning to pick up to be able to return to those particular communities. So of course, communities are doing a lot, but there can be little more, that communities can do, given the sophistication of some of these weapons that are used by these nihilist groups, as it were. So of course, we will not rule out the fact that communities are also trying their best. And of course, if you also want to relate that with what the government is also collaborating to do with the communities, then of course you can understand that only from the dimension of the fact that people are only being encouraged to defend themselves. I remember last week, the Green Carpeted Chamber of the National Assembly, that is the House of Representatives, one member had openly called that people should be able to defend themselves. But like I said, there can be little more or more than little, that communities can do, given the fact that if you want to go into self-defense, you must also be able to have the wherewithal, that you'll be able to defend yourself. And we have also seen in one of the reports, which you read about, the police issuing a statement about a man, who was said to be a deserter in the Nigerian police as a constable under the community policing. People have also come out from those communities to say that, no, these are people, indigenous people from their communities that were carrying some kind of weapons for self-defense that the military also shot at and killed 3 of them, as it were. So, of course, you can see the nature of it. But let me also bring this quickly, then I can put in my concluding remark here, that the issues should not be seen only within the prism of, for example, trying to trim the leaves of a tree in an effort to destroy it. Because that is what we have done, whether at the governmental level or the non-state actors. This is what we have done over time. We have pampered the situation. We have allowed some of these criminal elements to take over our forest, to take over our mountain areas, to take over some of our communities. Of course, a lot of people will say that there have been questions of climate change and all that. But at what point do you also have, for example, marauders coming from other countries like Mali, like Cote d'Ivoire, for example, like Cameroon into Nigeria, and not just Nigeria. Plateau State is one of the states that is at the center of the country. We mostly describe as the north of the south and south of the north, which means it's at the center. The question we always ask is, at what point do they come through the borders and through the other states that are sharing borders with Plateau State, like Bauchi State, like Nasarawa State, for example, like Kaduna State, for example, and many other states that share boundary with Plateau State? At what point do they also pass the heavy security, presupposedly, from those particular places to Plateau State, as it were? So I think we need to expand the conversation beyond that. We need to look at the solutions from an immediate approach, which is, of course, in my opinion, a short-term approach to ensure that we protect these people that are being killed on a daily basis. And that is what the military is doing at the moment. But the military cannot stay in those communities for a very long period of time. So the question of sustainability is also very key in the first place. So the first part of it is the immediate solution, which we are seeing now. Now, the second part is a medium-term solution. The medium-term solution is to be able to build confidence among these communities to be able to safeguard themselves also going further. And I can tell you that it is not just everything with regards to the what do you call the weapons that are also being restricted and licensed under the Nigerian Constitution. If you look at the 4th schedule to the 1999 Constitution, the 3rd arm of government, which is the local government in Nigeria, they have the power to also license the use of den guns. And these are the most local guns that you find some of these communities using to be able to defend themselves. So I think going further, we must be able to build that particular stratum, as it were. And just like my guest has also said, the government also need to do more to be able to build that particular confidence. Then the third part of it, for me, is a long-term solution. And the long-term solution should be taken beyond just the table of the Plateau State government, even beyond the table of the Nigerian government to the regional government, because it's also very key. The president of Nigeria recently was also been able to appointed as the chairperson of the Economic Community of West African States. And that also means that most of these countries that are being accused, quote and unquote, of allowing some of these criminal elements into Nigeria, I think the discussion should also go to that particular point. Then finally, to the international community, because it's very important. I can tell you that there is no place in Nigeria, and I repeat it again, there is no place in Nigeria, and I'm saying this authoritatively, that based on what I've also been able to research on, there is no place in Nigeria where these sophisticated weapons that are used by these criminal elements are manufactured. They are not manufactured here. The AK-47 that we're talking about are not local weapons here. So it therefore means that the companies in Europe, for example, the companies in other countries where these weapons are also manufactured should also be brought on the table for discussion. How do they get into the hands of these groups, to be able to kill the communities? Because if it is only attacks with sticks, then I'm sure that communities will be able to repel or even defeat some of these nihilist groups in the true sense of the word. So for me, I think the conversation should go just beyond that. We expect to see that, yes, it becomes an issue at the international level, beyond just pity, mercy, empathy, and all that. We should be able to look at proactive actions at the international organizations to stem the tides of these movements from the borders into these countries and even get into these communities. As we are talking now, there are also reports that are trickling in that groups are mobilizing to attack some specific communities in Riom, Mangu, Barkin Ladi, as I'm talking to you now. So the question we ask is, with all this intelligence that are also credible, how are we able to prevent these things before they are finally unleashed on these communities? So I think that should be my final commentary as far as some of these issues are concerned, so that we can be seen to be serious about addressing these issues of attacks and counterattacks, as it were. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pampe, for your time. Okay, let's take Prince Rangpam and then Junior.
Thank you very much. Special thanks to also our guests for detailed discussions and frank ones. I have a concern. We know that potatoes from the central zone where Mangu Bokos are, they've moved around Nigeria, even exported to other countries. This time there's crisis. The maize and the beans we get are along those sides, and the tomatoes from Barkin Ladi, Riom, even strawberries, they help sustain the economy. Is there any step that the government has taken, or what would you advise on the economic impact on not only Mangu, but Plateau State? Thank you.
Okay, is that question directed to, can we have Mr. Teye take a first bite?
Okay, I think there was a network. So may I have the question again, please?
Okay. I said most of the food we have in Plateau, like specifics, potatoes, Irish potatoes, maize, strawberries, and tomatoes, they come from these areas that have been attacked. What your estimation is the economic impact on the state? And has the government done something about it?
Okay. Yeah, Plateau State is known to be a place where most of all these crops that you have mentioned are grown here without any use of much input, fertilizer, and the likes. I see that, of course, the economy is set back because going to the farms is a problem. If you manage to farm, going to harvest is a problem. That's if before you go for harvest, these guys have not gone there to graze their animals in the place. So, of course, we have seen that economy will suffer, and of course, government will not generate anything from that angle. If it is true that the governor is the chief security of the state, I see that he really need to work with these local security organizations. And also, since he's already engaging with the chief of defense, chief of air, and all the service chiefs, I am concurring with the point where my co-guest, Mr. Pampe, raised that they shouldn't be staying for long in a particular checkpoint or in a particular place of assignment. I mean the soldiers and the special force. They should be rotating these guys from little time to time because if they stay in one place, I saw that myself in Bakiladi, where a particular set of team of the SDF that were sent to that sector, buying cars. If you go to the camp, you will see fleets of cars in that place. So how come are we not saying that there is conspiracy somewhere between who wants to attack who pays who to do what, and all that. So a governor should still, I still maintain that he should still do more to save the economy of the state from dying, and to also save the life of farmers. People who are farming, there are people that just don't just farm for consumption, but they farm for economic purposes. So the governor needs to still do more. And then looking at the like my co-guest has said, importation or proliferation of arms. Of course, all these arms that are being used in all these areas that we're talking about, attacks, are not manufactured here. What is the work of the security, the immigration? What is the work of customs at the borderlines? If it's true that they're maintaining the sovereignty of the Nigerian borders, what is the work of the border patrol police? What we are seeing now. Some years ago, we saw a truckload of English double-barrel arms, a truckload intercepted by the customs. That issue died off. We didn't know if those arms were given back to the government or they were traced to where they were coming from and all that. So I see that the governor and the government of Nigeria needs to do a lot with the issue of maintenance of the sovereignty of Nigerian borders. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we take Mr. Lucky's comments or question and then start rounding up? Lucky, please. You can unmute yourself. Let me see. Okay, wait. Okay, you can unmute yourself now.
Mr. Luka.
Yes, please.
You made mention of the military people are not always around, and it is difficult for the people of Plateau to curtail these criminals whenever they come, because the military people, they are not always there. I think that it is crucial to, I think that is a very vital information you just shared. And I don't know if you guys have been able to share this information with the military people. I think it was Ali that was was the GOC of Plateau State before it was transferred.
That's
I think
true.
it's the new GOC now. Have you guys been able to share this information with them and let them know that the military people are not always around, and that it is important that they, carry the local people, along, so that they can also maybe arm them and prepare them for any eventuality? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Yes, that point has been made. And that is against the backdrop of the fact that you have a lot of ungoverned spaces, in most of these areas as it is. I did a study sometimes back in 2014 about interagency collaboration and conflict management on the Plateau. And one of the areas of concentration, as far as that study was concerned, was Operation Safe Haven, which is, a special military operation on the Plateau. As a special military operation on the Plateau, one of the things I discovered, during that particular research at that time, was the fact that they had less than 900, boots on ground, as it were. And so if you are talking about that, it therefore tells you clearly that that particular agency comprises of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense, the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police, the Nigerian Correctional Service, and so on and so forth. It's a joint operation, as it were. But if you be that as it may, you put all of them together, you have less boots, in some of these crisis areas. Not to even talk about other areas that have not been attacked, but are also vulnerable areas in the true sense of the word. Now, if you go to the border areas, for example, Mangu and Tafa Balewa Bogoro on the axis of Bauchi through Lere local government, I can tell you that apart from a checkpoint that you have before you get to Gindiri, there's only one that is at that particular border between Lere and Mangu or Gindiri. And of course, those that are on that particular checkpoint I can tell you are not more than, on rotational basis, may not be more than 15, as it were. And so again, if you also take the border town, and that is Asakau to Kwanpan, which is between Nasarawa and Plateau State, at the southern edge there, the governor of Nasarawa State in the last 48 hours have also raised alarm, that they have observed some unusual movements of men on bike who were moving across that particular border to Plateau State, and in his opinion, are based on the security report, that they were heading towards Mangu for an attack, as it were. So again, if you take that particular axis, the last time I went through that axis, I can tell you that there were only 2 checkpoints there. The rest were vigilante groups that you find them intermittently along that particular axis. Again, if you also take it from the Abuja, Kaduna, Plateau, that is the Riom axis. I can also tell you that yesterday I passed through there with a stop around that particular area on my way to Abuja, where again, you can only see the checkpoint at Riom, for example, and maybe one other around Kibo and so on and so forth. But having said that, I think a lot of these places need a lot of boots on ground. Of course, a lot of people will say that that is a general problem with the security forces in terms of human capital or the personnel that are expected to be on ground. But of course, most of the times it is when reports are made that you find either the police or the military are trying to respond. And in most cases, the responses are always delayed. There's a community also called Maza, which is also sharing a border with Shere Jos East from the Jos North axis that was attacked sometimes back. And I also went to that particular community about, I think, 12 days or thereabout. I went to that particular community and discovered there's no even a single security personnel there, not even a single police station there. So this is the general situation. And Plateau State is a state with quite a number of communities and a population. And of course, it shares a lot of border. And that is why I said it's at the center. Until and unless you are able to prevent the snake, from getting into the sitting room and eventually into the bedroom to cause havoc, then it becomes very difficult, for us to be able to manage, this crisis in the true sense of the word. I'm using the word crisis to score all that we have also talked about in terms of the nature of this insecurity, as it were. So yes, we've been able to raise those issues. Personally, I have spoken on these issues time and times again. I have gone to the Maxwell Kobe cantonment, which is the 3 division, to also be able to advise when the new GOC also came. I've said it severally on air too, even yesterday. And of course, if that is what it means for us to be able to hear our voices with regard to some of these issues, these are the things that we have also been doing as far as some of this crisis and insecurity is concerned.
All right.
Thank
you very, very much, Mr. Luka Pampe and Mr. Miles Teye, for being with us this evening. It's been a very engaging experience. Let's continue to pray and hope that the governments and the authorities and security agencies in Nigeria will see need to take this security situation in Plateau State very seriously and find a lasting solution to the crisis. And we also note that the killings happening, especially around the Middle Belt area, is not only restricted to Plateau State. There are also killings around the Benue, Southern Kaduna, and even in Zamfara and some other northern states. So Nigerians wonder when all these killings will end, and whether there are actually some foreign agents who are intent to see Nigeria being destabilized. Well, we continue to hope for a solution. So thank you very much. We are happy to see you tonight, Mr. Luka Pampe. Thank you very much for coming.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, and Mr. Miles Teye, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
And all those who asked questions and contributed comments, it's been a pleasure having you here. Thank you.